Turn up the dial, it's 10:30. We back. Spin that back show, all the classics on track. From 79 to 99, we're crossing the gap. Album reviews, little known facts, hip hop intact. Saturday mornings, dive into the history. Samples and stories, old school mysteries. Early South static, Shiraz and CBD. Roll up at a pin. Turn it up, let the vinyl spin. 10:30 sharp, where the stories begin. From the golden era, treasures within. Spin that back show every Saturday when we break it down, the legends and the lore. Every beat, every rhyme, uncover more. From Grandmaster Flash to Nas's roar, we're bridging the past, hip-hop's core.
All right. It's 10:30 Saturday morning. Spin that back show. Yes. And we're gonna be doing it like this, like we do mostly every weekend. We talk about hip hop from 79 to 99, but then sometimes we go back a little further and we go back to where the essence of hip hop came from, you know what I'm saying? The samples and stuff like that for this era, you know what I'm saying? And one of the big ones on this era was a man named George Clinton. And then he had, of course, the P-Funk, Parliament, Funkadelic. Spin that back one time. I'm here with Mr. Nice Guy once again. Mr. Nice Guy, usually, like I said, we talk about hip-hop from 79 to 99. We reminisce and talk about how that has some type of effect on us, you know, and things like that. We just kind of like talk about it, break it down a little bit, and, you know, share some stories and things that we done learned about our artists and everything. But we gonna talk about, you know, this old school artist right here, this man right here. I'm gonna take the wheel most of the time on this, I guess. But yeah, this is the reason why I want to do my man George Clinton is because, like I said, we always talk about the people that actually had some type of big impact on hip hop. I think we started off with Slide, and I think we went to James Brown. But now we end up right here. We had to talk about, you know, Mr. George Clinton, the dog himself, Dr. Funkenstein. Man, what you know about my man?
I gotta tell you, man, this dude. I mean, you know, and he has some connections because we did Sly and the Family Stone, so you know he was definitely a disciple of Sly. So you know what I'm saying, and I mean, it's just he had the. I know he did his stuff before the 80s. You know, he was doing something I think in the late 70s, but I know that in the early 80s he had a grip on things. When you talk about the Funkadelic, you talk about Parliament. I mean, I just remember like going over to people's house, older cats. I was pretty young back then to just be seeing these records, these colorful psychedelic records and stuff like that, you know, with all these people on it, you know what I'm saying? Bootsy Collins and stuff like that. So it's just like, you know, but the music, I mean, it's all over hip hop. You know, this is one of the things that we sample the most. When you talk about EPMD, you know what I'm saying? When you talk about the West Coast music, I mean, it's just heavily influenced by George Clinton, Funkadelic, Parliament, Bootsy Collins. You know?
Yeah, a lot of the old school East Coast was too, to be honest with you, you know. But let's put up some of this stuff. They had a big old group of people, and this ain't even everybody. And you gotta think about, you know, George Clinton had characters and stuff, you know, like Dr. Funkenstein, Sir Nosed, and you know, people like that.
Which was motivation for like Humpty Hump, you know.
Exactly.
So you know, so that's what's up.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Let me go ahead and spin that back one time. I was definitely going right there with that. You know? Yeah, like you said, you know, you got these albums that was like way out and colorful and stuff. Like here go a Funkadelic album, you know, One Nation Under the Groove, One Nation Under a Groove. Yeah, this was you know, just that's not even way out. That's actually super simple for them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Show you another album here. I ain't really got too many of them up here. I don't really want to put too many of them up here. Yeah, I ain't got really too many of them.
But it's basically the colorful psychedelic dynamic, you know, because they come out of that. I mean, it's the psychedelics, the drugs of the 70s, and that's where he took it to Funkadelic. So, you know, we giving you the funk, you know, we jamming on the one, but really now we're making the bass guitar as the star player. Usually in traditional music, the drum and the bass guitar are sort of like background. You're just establishing the pocket for everybody else to get their shine. But in funk and even, you know, ultimately hip hop, the drummer is getting their shine, the bass line is getting its shine because those are emphasized in hip hop.
Yes, sir. That's real. That's real. Well, you know what? I have to take a little exception to that though, because you did have a man. Let me see, Bernie Worrell, which was part of the group, who was actually playing the synthesizers and piano and stuff like that, all the keys and stuff. And he actually made the bass line for things like Flashlight and Aqua Boogie. He's playing the bass line on there. You know what I'm saying?
So he's achieving it another way, but the bottom line is it's the bass line. But you're right, that's right, because the instruments open things up. Those electronic instruments.
Right, exactly. Yes, sir. But yeah, so George and them, George started doing some doo-wop stuff. They started out there on the East Coast, like Newark, New Jersey, between Newark and Patterson. They actually found their way up to Detroit. I think they had a little deal with Motown for a minute, and they came up with this one song called "Testify" about 1967. That's what was a big hit for them. And then from there, George just got smart and started writing a lot of songs, and he lost the name the Parliaments, and so he made up the group Funkadelic. I guess he found a way back to start using Parliament again, so it was Parliament Funkadelic. And then, like you said, you had other people come on like Boosie, and you even had everybody from, not everybody, but this whole horn section basically from James Brown, Maceo, and Fred Wesley came on over, started using horns and stuff. And I think they came by way of Boosie, because Boosie came about 75. They came around the same time. And before then, they I guess they had some horns here and there, but they had a real horn section when Maceo and Fred Wesley was in there playing. You can hear the difference.
Well, that's the thing about you talking about Bootsy. I mean, that was James Brown's band. Once he fired all those other people and basically substituted with the next generation of people. So like Prince going from the next generation, or he went from the revolution or whatever to the new power generation or something like that. The bottom line is that's when he brought in Bootsy Collins, and they all these cats networked. You know what I'm saying? So you end up getting Bootsy, you end up recruiting Bootsy. You're gonna be recruiting some powerful musicians behind them because they come out of that whole the James Brown movement.
Yes, sir. Bootzilla. Bootsy, look at those glasses Bootsy got on. Look at that crazy outfit. Bootsy was always out there, way out there and everything. But Bootsy, yeah, he came and they was already kind of funky, you know what I'm saying, with the Funkadelic and everything and the stuff they was making before Bootsy came over there. But Bootsy came over there and gave him a different feel. Everything felt different by the time Bootsy came over there. But the whole thing is a lot of hip hop has been sampled from this dude all the way up to the 80s when he dropped Atomic Dog. That was like what, 81, 82, somewhere around up in there. But anyway, that was a beat you never heard before. It was like a beat going backwards and everything. And it just sounded so good, but it was just so different. One thing I can say about Parliament music, they always made music that you couldn't really replicate. It was just their own little thing because it was always different. They stuff didn't never sound the same.
You hear all the details about the construction of Atomic Dog.
Yeah.
I mean, they were talking about the whole going backwards thing. That wasn't even like really part of it. It's just like something that happened or whatever.
They put the tape on. They put the tape on the wrong way, and it. It was like instead of playing two, they was playing instead of two, something like that. Whatever it's supposed to be playing. So
and him just in there freestyling. I mean, he just basically went there and it's like, well, I'm just gonna start doing something and just why is the dog chase the cat? And he just freestyled this thing. That's just a legendary riff, great song. I mean, it's the way it came together. I mean, it's kind of hilarious. But you gotta have talent to do that.
It was like Old Dirty Bastard. That's how it sounds like to me. They say Old Dirty Bastard kind of work like that. But what happened was, he just went in there, just laid down all these crazy lyrics and everything. But then after he left, another cat came and actually put all the the synth sounds and everything in there, and actually made it the actual song. And by the time George came back, he was like, "Oh, it's a real record now." Yeah.
Mhm.
So George had a lot of help too, like any other producer and musician and everything out here. You always get some help, but everybody don't get the credit that they deserve. But it is what it is. But yeah, Atomic Dog has been used on so many damn songs. We can't even begin to even name them, because when you start naming songs, you're gonna leave out so many songs that you can't even go back and be like, man, I can't just do it no justice. But everybody knows that famous backward sound and everything. But you never heard nothing like that in anything else except when they sampled that. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't replicate that. That was just unique.
Yeah, shout out to Volume 10. Pistol grip, pump on my lap at all times. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, no, that resonates very good lifey West Coast. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the Baker Boys produced that one for him. So that was a joint. But yeah.
Only thing that came close to that was Paul Revere.
Yeah.
Paul Revere had that backwards like beat and everything, but it just wasn't like Atomic Dog though. But it was something similar though. That's the only thing I ever heard that was similar. That
but it was
cool.
But it was classic. You talk about the impact that it had. You know what I'm saying? It just was like that was a big thing. I mean, because PE did it. On a song. They had a song where it was like Rebel with a Pause, not Rebel with a Pause, but the other one that was basically had it going backwards. But you know what I'm saying? But when you talk about the songs that really like dug into it, Paul Revere completely dug into it. That was a classic. That was,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about when they had the horn going back, but like,
exactly. So
yeah, but this was the actual drum line, going
exactly.
backwards, so yeah, that's the difference, But either way, it's all good though. Let's go ahead and spin that back one time. That one right there. But yeah, but Bootsy, but like I say, when Bootsy came on the scene, actually, one of the first songs Bootsy helped him write was Chocolate City, the actual song on the album Chocolate City. I don't even had the Chocolate City album up here. I should have had that up here too. It's just too many things to even think about right now. But Chocolate City, if you actually know that song, because I didn't really know the song when it came out. It came out like 76, and I was only about 3 years old at the time. I would have never known the song anyway. But by the time I did listen to the song, I see they was talking about Black people taking over cities. And, and then, Chocolate City, the big Chocolate City was Washington, D.C. Ironically. The reason why I say ironically is what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now. Chocolate City, Black people being taken over. Y'all get me? But yeah. And then he was talking about, a Black man being in the White House, and then all these secretaries and everything being Black, like Stevie Wonder, Secretary of Fine Education, Miss Aretha Franklin, the First Lady, and Reverend Knight, Minister of whatever, finance, I think it was. But anyway, great song. It was a good song. If you know about it. If you don't know about it, go ahead and check it out. I guess Mr. Nice Guy don't know too much about it, which is not a bad thing either.
Well, most of the stuff that I know is like after the fact. It's like what's been sampled. So it's like you're talking about now. I'm a little bit older than you, but still, I was still too young to really appreciate a lot of that stuff back then. And as a hip hopper, you go digging in the crates, and that's when you go find stuff. So that's when you get exposed to stuff. But I still wasn't really leaning to that. That I was more digging the crates that I really had. I tried to have obscure stuff, but I was really more like jazz type stuff, and definitely heavily James Brown and the Meters. You know what I'm saying? But I respected the hell out of the Parliament. I think I had that one album that you had, and I definitely sampled some stuff off of that. But again, most of the stuff I recognize from who used it. You know what I'm saying? But that just shows you how great it was that you influenced all these people to use your stuff. So,
remember we did the Red Man show and we had showed his album. This is the album that came off of There Is a Dark Side.
Yep.
This is where he got it from. Maggot. It's actually Maggot Brain. And Maggot Brain, to a lot of enthusiasts, guitar enthusiasts, they say this is a great album. Well, a great song, Maggot Brain. They love that damn song, that guitar solo on there. Yeah, but just want to throw that out there. And this album right here is where I got it mixed up with Funkadelic, which is the song that got that song "Good Old Music," which got that famous drum line that was used on, like, say, DOC, Doc and the Doctor. Well, not Doctor and the Doctor. Let me see, what's the name of that song? Well, actually, you know what? Jungle Brothers use it too. Doom, 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 doom.
Yeah, exactly. JB, shout out to the JBs.
Yeah, Jungle Brothers and a whole lot of other people, of course, use the damn song. But just trying to think of some famous ones. In fact, I can't even think of the name of the damn song. I gotta pull it up, if anything.
I'm telling you, it's like when these songs, they influence us so much just by what they are, what they've been used for. You lose track. I can't help but think about how in this generation, they're so far removed to a person who sampled the sample that they have no connection to the original song. I always thinking like Lotto is probably thinking that Mariah Carey was like the originator of that, that basically what the Tom Tom Club did, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like you get so far away with the generations as far as where they're going, but this is the beauty of the music, that it's just that this is the strength of this, the core, this is where it came from. This is what we're seeing with all the Sly stuff. I mean, they just the sample work, it's just it shows you how with the dope stuff that was there that we had to work with. We didn't have a lot of instruments, you know what I'm saying? In the beginning, when it started out in the parks, I mean, they're using Fisher Price turntables. Your instruments were your records, and this is the stuff that they, dug in and got stuff. Especially once you get to the real producers, when you get the Marley Marl, you get the Pete Rock, you get the, the EPMD and all this other stuff. I mean, these people are these are the crates that they're digging into to find this stuff.
Definitely.
Shout out to Digital Underground. Digital Underground really made a play of it. Just their whole sort of like notorious snare that they used, which was basically.
You know what? Spin that back one time. Digital Underground used more P-Funk than anybody I know at the time, because that's what they whole first and second album was like based on their music, basically. You know what I'm saying? Even the Humpty Dance got so much P-Funk in there, that "Oh, do it, baby." That's the beginning of one of the Parlette songs or Bride's songs, one of those. But it starts off just like that. "Oh, do it, baby." And then dun dun, all that. Let me see. Even though the horns, dun 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 dun, "I'll do it, baby." I think that's on the same song, actually.
And then it's a play, all that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just
that's the bass line that they made, though.
But I'm saying, but it's a play on emphasizing that stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's also talking about what comes into the forefront once you get to hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So they did that. But that snare. I mean, that was like their patented snare. Once they used that snare, it sort of like became like the Digital Underground snare, even though it was basically a derivative of the Funkadelic, Parliament stuff.
Right. Yeah, but you know what? They were inspirational on Zap, More Bounce, right? George and Boosie had a whole lot to do with that album.
And that's why when I start talking about one of those people, when you talk about Nile Rodgers and whatnot, I mean, these guys, they have so much connections to so much music. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, even when it's like Chic and stuff like that, it's just like there's so many hip hop connections that it's just a lot. But these cats, they did their thing, and they were just think about it. They were just youngsters having fun, just visionaries, just playing out a thought, and they just their work, their achievements are immortal. You know what I'm saying? It's
definitely. Spin that back, because they was like youngsters having fun before Boosie even got with them. Like I say, 67 when they had their first real song. By the time they got to 70, they was like into that psychedelic stuff with the Funkadelic. Everything was just really, if you listen to it, it's like psychedelic type stuff. That's where you got those album covers that look all crazy and stuff. Yeah,
drugs. It's like drugs are bad, but they produce great music.
Can't
lie about that.
They did. And they said they did all, George said they did all, everybody I think said they did all kinds of drugs. So they was doing all kinds of stuff. This is a different time and day. This wasn't the same type of drugs. Y'all got those hardcore drugs out there nowadays. Y'all can't live up to the stuff that they had.
Well, sadly, a lot of people didn't survive behind that stuff. So, it's just, I'm glad that a lot of people made it. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't. You know.
Here go one of the other album covers. This is the Motor Booty Affair. You got Sir Knowles down there, and then you got that goddamn bird. I forgot the name of the bird. I don't know if the bird had a name. That was, I think, Dr. Funkenstein's bird.
Yeah. See, you said bird. I messed up because the Peacemaker, they got this whole bit about bird blindness. I ain't about to go into it, but you just it's hilarious.
It. But you know, they had a whole little concept going on, actually. You know, I think it started off with like the Mothership Connection. Then it went on to like clones of Dr. Funkenstein.
Yeah, these cats is out there. Look at these outfits, man. These cats
Funkadelic, Placebo Syndrome. Then I think it was this one here. They had a whole little concept about, you know, how they was like coming from, you know, the mothership, you know, and Dr. Funkenstein was the Mothership Connection. He had the bob gun. He would shoot Sir Knowles to make him dance. And, you know, and I guess Sir Knowles actually got him back on the album after this one, though. Glory Holla Stupid. I don't see it, but oh, that's Sir Knowles again. Glory Holla Stupid, or this album here. There you go. I don't know if that's the name of the album. I might be wrong on that, but either way, I have to double check that just to be sure. You know, I don't want to give up too much bad information. Just me saying that it ain't me not knowing it's bad enough. So
but they had a whole ideology worked out. It's basically sort of like Wu-Tang. You know, you sit there with the 36 chambers and all of this, and it's like, you know, as an artist and a musician, it's cool to just be someone just goes out there. I'm just a musician. I just do my thing. But, you know, when you got this really sort of like intricate thing like De La Soul with the plug tuning, the plug, you know, the PA plug master and the plug 1 and plug 2 and all this other stuff, these were easier sells. You know what I'm saying? So it's just when you have this sort of like, not so much religion, but you have just basically just this whole backstory to your whole thing. You know what I'm saying? It's a creative outlet and it's just something to do, but it's definitely something that distinguishes you just from everybody else. It's just showing up like, hey, my name is Bobby Jones, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, they had the albums that they had, you know, they had all the cover art and everything. And then sometimes they had like little posters and little booklets and stuff, like kind of like comic books and stuff, because it was telling the whole story, especially when it got to like the Mothership Connection around 75. Then clones of Dr. Funkenstein, 76, 77 was Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome. Then they had the live album where Dre had sampled the Let Me Ride, you know, that swing down, I Want to Ride.
Sweet Chariot.
Yeah. Then the Motor Booty Affair, 78, 79 was Glory Holla Stupid. And then 1980, Trumpet Punctuation or something like that. Trumpet Punctuation, whatever it was called.
Yeah, Trumpet. It's the play on Trump, not a play on Trump.
Trumpet.
That's clear.
Okay, polish. Yeah. Since it got Trump. Yeah, Trum. Like trombone.
Oh, trombone. There you go. Exactly.
Right. So that was like they fall off album, to be honest with you. Glory Holla Stupid was okay. It had some cuts on there. Don't get it wrong. It had a couple of good cuts on there. To me, my favorite albums would be between Mothership Connection all the way down to Motor Booty. Those were some good albums. The live album I don't really mess with too much, you know, so I just don't like people's live albums. But yeah, some good stuff on here though. In fact, let's go into this. Let me see. Let me start with our Mothership Connection. Make My Funk the P-Funk. Yeah, of course we know that's been used on a whole lot of stuff. I think this was some NWA stuff, of course. And a whole lot of other people didn't use that too. Mothership Connection. That's Dre, of course, again.
Yeah, Dre ate off off of George Clinton and Funkadelic. Again, the West Coast, I mean, I understand there was the East Coast movement with it, but the West Coast, this they really kind of ran with that because that stuff really resonated out here. I mean, we really had a real strong movement in the 80s. And I mean, when you got to sort of just the gang sort of like culture and stuff like that, that was still the music that they were still basically holding down. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, that's what it was. So that's why a lot of the gang bang music, West Coast gang bang music, really kind of leaned heavily in that type of sound.
Yeah. It's another one called Super Groovalistic Falsification, whatever the hell it is. It's too damn long to
tell you, man. Them drugs will get you going. Drugs will get you going. That all of this stuff is screaming drugs, and again, definitely not condoning or suggesting or promoting them, but they definitely had their influence, and a lot of great artistry came out of that movement.
Right. Well, some of this stuff, but you gotta understand, you had people like the Bomb Squad from PE that was actually using a lot of this stuff too back in the day too. You gotta really realize that. Not just this, I'm talking about like really the Funkadelic stuff, especially all that noise and stuff that you hear on stuff. A lot of that stuff is some Funkadelic stuff.
Greatest production collectives in all of hip hop, the Bomb Squad. You know what I'm saying? So
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song called Handcuffs. That's where Ice Cube got that. Do I have to put my handcuffs on your mama? That's what he said on the song. All right.
From Bob Gun, which he literally got the title from.
Definitely. Bob Gun is definitely next album, actually. Give Up the Funk. We Want the Funk. Give Up. Everybody know that song. That's probably one of their biggest songs. Night of the Thumpersaurus People. Yeah, I heard Digital Underground actually, referenced a part of this song in one of their songs, actually. Then the Mothership Connection. Well, that's another version of it, I guess. So yeah, there's some good stuff that came off this type of stuff. You got the Clones, which has some good stuff. But let's get to the real good stuff. It's a song on here called, actually, it's a song called Everything Is on the One. And that's where they explain to everybody what the one is. Only thing they say in the song basically is everything is on the one. Just keep on repeating that. And then they say everything is on the one. And then y'all now picture that. That's where it's at, But then it's just everything is on the one. That's all they keep saying. I've been watching you, the way you move your sexy body. This is that Bone song. For the Love of Money. Doom, doom, doom. Yeah, they just replayed it. But yeah.
And that was one of the Bone songs I actually liked. I wasn't a big fan. I respected the hell out of what they did as far as the harmonies and all that other stuff. And I mean, they were a reflection of sort of like the modern hip hop scene at that time, what I'm saying, with the real fast kind of chops and stuff like that. But they were doing it with like harmony that was beating out like singers, what I'm saying? Them cats had greater harmony than singers and stuff like that. But I wasn't necessarily a big fan of the songs, but that was a song that I did like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I loved it. I liked it because I liked the beat and everything. The Prelude is what they had used to open up Eazy-E's album, Eazy-E's first album, as the sample that they use all through the Prelude, where they actually doing the little talking and stuff. Let me see. Children of Production. Let me see. I don't think that's used for anything that anybody know. Getting to Know You. If You Hip to the DOC. Whirlwind Pyramid. Well, if you hip to that song, that's what that is.
Also, you got to know in the 80s, the late 80s, you were sampling big refs and stuff. That was before the lawsuits dropped. Once you get to the 90s, after that, now you're dealing with chops. So, you may not necessarily recognize it as easily, but, a lot of these chops is coming from this stuff. Rest assured.
Right. Let me go on to this next album, the Funkadelic album. You had the Bop Gun. That's the first song on there. It's called Bop Gun. So that's what Ice Cube got that from. Then you got Sir Nose, Devoid of Funk. You got to go listen to that. It's a lot of NWA stuff on that. Funkadelic. This is used for Ice Cube's doing dumb shit, actually. Placebo syndrome, I don't really know about that. Flashlight, it's been used on so much stuff.
Everything.
Flashlight,
everything.
like I say, one of their biggest hits, if not the biggest hit ever, so that's everybody.
Flashlight, One Nation Under Groove, you know what I'm saying? These are the songs that are just, but Flashlight, definitely. That was a sort of like a thug anthem right there. They don't dance, they boogie.
Flashlight, and I'm gonna tell you what, and the one on the album after this, after the live album, like I said, I don't deal with the live albums. After that one, you came to the Motor Booty Affair, and the big song on here was Aqua Boogie to me.
Mm-hmm.
Aqua Boogie was the big song on here, and that's been used on all kinds of stuff and everything. It's a song called the Motor Booty Affair. It's a bass line on here. I thought I found this. I'm like, man, I ain't heard nobody use this. Shit, as soon as I got to the point where I can loop it, I heard Scarface had used it.
Oh man, that used to be a gut punch when you think you done found something that you're like amazing. Nobody that came out with this, then someone just drops it or something. I remember when I sampled The Godfather. That was before no one had sampled it. And I was like, I didn't want to play nobody. I didn't want to play the song for nobody because people immediately were like, oh, I'm just take that and just run with it. And then ultimately someone did, but that was fun.
Were you how'd you feel about EPMD, the headbanger?
Dope. I mean, you know what I'm saying? EPMD, they were a perfect blend of what was appealing for people on the East Coast and what was appealing for people on the West Coast. Because that whole funk aspect, that was you had an en route right into, what people was feeling and doing out here. And I mean, they are one of the great bands, great hip hop, groups, of really just of hip hop. I was gonna say of our era, but really of all time. That's EPMD. But they did but they leaned into the funk. That was their thing. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just they didn't dabble in it. They leaned into it.
Yeah, exactly. Because they had used for the headbanger, they used a song called One of Those Funky Things that's on this album, on the Motor Booty Affair album. Just wanted to throw that out there. But EPMD, and they really leaned a whole lot into like a whole lot of Zap funk. You know what I'm saying? Really Eric Sermon. You can hear a whole lot of that influence and a whole lot of those samples and stuff. Because he'll take a sample from, EPM, from Zap. He'll take one song.
Crossover.
Like I Can Make You Dance and the crossover. You know what?
Yeah.
When he sampled that, that was actually a new song that just came out when he sampled that. You know what I'm saying? He said,
no shame.
Yeah.
I did that too.
I did that too, honestly. Yeah, but I mean, but they are direct descendants of part of George's lineage and everything. Like I said, because George and Boosie was helping them on their first album and everything. In fact, I think it's actually produced either by George or Boosie. I think it's George actually, like Mo Bounce, all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Talk about Mo Bounce. That's the song. First of all, EPMD rocked it. Heavy D rocked it. I mean, that's just that might be up there with one of those. You talk about the most famous songs. You know what I'm saying? That's probably right up there with a Flashlight and Atomic Dog and
Well, Flashlight and Atomic Dog and those type of songs are just into for like George Clinton in particular. You know what I'm saying? But this is, more Bounce as far as Zap goes. That's one of their biggest songs, more Bounce. But then you got to think Zap came with a lot of hits, though. So you get a Zap greatest hits and throw it on, you can be like, damn, I remember this, I remember that.
Sure. He was the father of auto-tune before auto-tune.
Right. That talk box and everything. But I heard Stevie using it way before him, though. Way before.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. Come on now. We go back to those classic albums. Like I think it was either Music in My Mind or For Feeling This first finale. One of those albums. It was either Music in My Mind or For Feeling This.
Yeah, he just didn't do it like. I mean, this guy did it like all the time. That's why I guess you identify with it as a person who just like
Yeah, he just did it, for a couple of lines here and there. You know what I'm saying? In fact, it was a song, I Love Having You Around. That's where you got the talk box going at. Actually, going through, it's just one song, though. It's just really just one song, but he using the talk box, though. It's back in like 70, 71, 72, 73, way back. But anyway, direct lineage though of George Clinton. So, and then when you talk about Bootsy, actually, yeah, you're right. They Eric Sermon did lean heavily into funk because he used a lot of Bootsy too. Come to think of it, Bootsy and and Funkadelic and Parliament and stuff.
Hey, Redman called himself the Funk Doctor Spock. You know what I'm saying? These cats came from that. They were very comfortable.
Did you know that Sly actually played with Parliament Funkadelic?
Yes, because remember that documentary that Sly just came out. I think I might have even mentioned it when we did. We covered Sly, right? I think that we did Sly.
We did. Yeah.
In that documentary, and that's when I found out that how behind the scenes that that Bootsy was working. Not Bootsy, sorry. George Clinton was working with with Sly and stuff like that. And later, basically, when he was touring and stuff like that, he brought Sly out. You know what I'm saying with him. Before Sly got too beat up by the drugs. You know what I'm saying. But that was the guy. That was his guy. You know what I'm saying. So he didn't run from it. A lot of people were talking about how like in that documentary, they said that Sly was Prince before Prince. You know what I'm saying? And that Prince was heavily influenced by Sly. And it was like one of those type of situations where George Clinton was heavily influenced by Sly as well. So, so there was that connective tissue. So when you say that, they were all networked together, which is a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't necessarily all these beefs and rivalries. I understand that Rick James and Prince may have had some type of rivalry, but it wasn't all that. You know what I'm saying? It's nice to know that those legendary people did, collab, so to speak.
Right. Well, for what it's worth. In fact, let me get back to where we at though, because we kind of got off track there a little bit. Now, where's my spin that back? There we go. All right. But either way, the bottom line is a whole lot of people had used a lot of George Clinton type stuff. You know what I'm saying? A whole lot of people was actually influenced by George Clinton. Bernie Worrell, I just wanted to, give a special segment out to him because his bass lines are just, just legendary. Flashlight, that whole bass line is all him on the Moog or whatnot. The same thing with Aqua Boogie and a whole lot of other songs. He just works that bass line, you know what I'm saying? And then all the other little sounds that you hear on the little synthesizers and crazy little sounds in the background and everything. If you really listen to the music, Bernie Worrell, he came after the first album. Yeah. So, yeah. Shout out to him, though. And let me put a spin that back on that one. And pretty much, I think that's about it we can say about that. Unless you want to get a 5 minutes of funk. Did you have anything for 5 minutes of funk this time?
We had something that you didn't agree with. Man, I forgot what it was. You was
Well, somebody had said this. Why is it so hard to work with Dr. Dre?
Did we didn't cover that? We didn't do that? I thought we did that. I think
we talked.
I know that was the one that we were supposed to. I gotta feel like that we did, and we talked about it just because at the end, the main thing about that situation is that Dre is a collaborator. He's not necessarily much of a creator per se. So, if you basically a collaborator, you need to depend on creative things to create the spark for you to sort of like put this together. So that's why, that will tend to go slow. I mean, this dude you heard like Helter Skelter, all these albums and stuff that just either never came out or came out bootleggy one at a time or whatever, all this other stuff. I mean, part of it was him being a perfectionist, but another part of it was look, dude, when you create something, you can add something. You can keep adding on something forever. But there comes a point in time where you got to cut bait. This song is done. Pivot to the next song. And that might be his greatest weakness as a producer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, real talk. Well, I don't know. I don't think we actually did this because now that we're talking about it, because
I know it's fleshing out a little bit more.
He always been a collaborator though, for the most part. You know what I'm saying? He started.
And that's not a knock. That's not a knock. I'm gonna let you talk, but I just want to point out that we're not knocking him for that. He's a great.
Not a knock at all. I mean, he even started, DJing with Eazy-E before they even thought about making NWA. Before they even got with the record. Before he got with the Wrecking Crew. When he got with the Wrecking Crew, he just got so good at DJing that he just became, the man, that he is or was at the time. You know what I'm saying? But then he was actually collaborating with with Yella a lot of the times, most of the time, especially with NWA. But Yella probably came into NWA a little bit after what he was doing, but he was even with that, he always had
It
like
was a great
somebody around.
influence. Brick Wall, shout out to my brother Leroy. We used to talk about that all the time. Dre had a completely different sound with Yella than when he got away from Yella. So it basically illustrated Yella's impact on the earlier stuff. So he was a big part of that production wise. You know what I'm saying? So DJ Yella.
Well, yeah.
He had you once he got away from Yella. Like I give him props on what he did on DOC. You said he did that by himself.
Yeah, he did that by himself.
But the bottom line is when you hear a lot of the NWA stuff, I mean, even after he was gone, you know what I'm saying? Yella was still doing, I'm assuming that was Yella still producing and doing, the stuff for the NWA. That you could just tell that he had a big part of
shit. After Dre left, it wasn't no more NWA. That was it.
Sorry, I didn't mean Dr. Dre. I'm thinking about Ice Cube. Yeah, I did. You're right. But still, he still connected with those people. But yeah, you're right. For some reason, I just completely, what do you call it? Suffice to say. But if you go to because I'm definitely thinking about Ice Cube leaving and the impact he had. So lyrically, there was a change up, but that had nothing to do with DJ Yella. But as far as the production side, you just saw that DJ Yella. I mean, he was more of a sort of like traditional hip hopist. Whereas I felt like Dre sort of like migrated to a more play music type guy, you know what I'm saying? And he pulled it off after a fashion, but I'm just saying that was further away from my vibe. I'm a very samplist type person, you know what I'm saying? If you can play something and make something dope like the Roots, all power, I love it, you know what I'm saying? But I was a person that felt like, look, if you're not as good as a musician as these older cats were, I don't necessarily want to hear your rendition of what they did. I'd rather you sample what they did and make something new. So that's where I came from. And I'm just saying that I know that DJ Yella was definitely, had more sample influence as opposed to, when Dr. Dre moved on and did his own thing.
I'm not sure because let's think about For the Love of Money. I think, in fact, I know Yella did that, but that was actually played.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just saying it's not just the sampling thing. It's just that, when you talk about the NWA, they had a more hip hop vibe as opposed to when they just went to basically G-Funk with something different. And me and Brick Walls, we used to basically say G-Funk is cool and all, but it sounds like, like elevator music rap. Like they basically made a easy listening rap, which was kind of true to that whole vibe because, gangsters don't dance, they boogie. So it was there was a more vibe thing as opposed to me, hip hop was an energy thing. And that's why I always lean into the samples more because basically you're tapping into the industry of those high instruments, high playing, high whatchamacallit, and running through all the filters and all the stuff that they did to create those thick sounds that they created as opposed to just going into the studio and plugging your thing into it. And, it's just naked and skin.
I mean, I in a sense, I agree with you, but I understand that Dre stuff was more like gangster because it was coming from like the funk tip. Now, when you start thinking about like Warren G, now that's where you start thinking about like the elevator music. Especially when he made stuff like Regulate, it was like, why would he sample that? You know what I'm saying? Why would he take that Michael McDonald song and make that a record? To me, that wasn't really. That was soft to me. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't really make that gangster to me.
You didn't think G Thing was a soft?
No, G Thing was whore as hell.
See, that's again to me that's gangster hard.
Because
that's not hip hop hard.
Because it was funk, and I keep forgetting.
Everything about G Funk is this right here. You know what I'm saying? Everything about whatever that song was, the song I just said is this. Boogie. Whereas you got this other stuff. You got woo-ha. You know what I'm saying? It's this. You know what I'm saying? That's hard to me. That was the difference. So that's why
I got what you're saying. Yeah, you're talking more like on the tempo side.
I'm talking about energy. I'm talking about energy. You guys, this is Puff and La type stuff. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to woo-ha, got you all in check where you dancing on the floor. If you put on what's the song? I just brought the name of the song up. What was that first song? The song I just G Thing. Okay, nothing but a G Thing. You know what I'm saying? You get people on the floor. it's just all this, you know what I'm saying? And the energy is completely different. Whereas you put on Bitch, You Better Have My Money, the energy was different. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? So again, it wasn't like soft in the sense that it wasn't like tough. Because again, gangsters were real tough. You know, we can talk about music tough. Gangsters was real tough. So anything that they liked, there was no shame in that. You know what I'm saying? That'd get you shot disrespecting that stuff. So, you know, it kind of was what it was. But I'm just talking about the hard stuff. When I think about hard and I think about hip hop, I think about LL Cool J, Dangerous. This song was hard. It's a banging ass beat, stab, DJ cuts. You know what I'm saying? This is hard. You know what I'm saying? Whereas that other stuff was real melodic and cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but, you know, they shoot up somebody to that. So it was hard. They go do a drive-by to that. So, you know, it was still gangster. But, you know.
I got you. But you know what? Some people like MC8 never got hyped. He never had no hyped up song. That's not his style at all. You know, you got some people like LL who can go from laid back all the way up to hyped up. You know what I'm saying? But then you got some people that just, I guess that's the difference.
MC8 pulled that off, you know what I'm saying? And he was, you know, that was nigga music. That was gangster. That was real, you know what I'm saying? That was music. But that dude, he's dope, man. I mean, I always loved that dude. His whole style, wicked motherfucker. It's just like, you know, just the way that his cadence and all that stuff, MC8 is a dope ass rapper.
I'll tell you another one. King T don't never get super hyped up. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
He have energy on his songs, but he, you know, his rhyme structure is always kind of like, you know, in a smooth way. You know what I'm saying? His delivery is always kind of laid back.
He maintains the cool, but he's definitely had some energy, like on Liquid, on, you know, I Got It Bad. Because those are banging beats. You can only be so cool on it. You know what I'm saying? Right. So whatever. But you're right. He's always maintained that cool element. But I mean, when you think about Rakim's a smooth guy, but he can go off. You know what I'm saying? So he's still a high energy guy that even does sort of like the laid back type of like whatever. Whereas, I mean, EPMD, when they started off, they were almost snooze fest laid back. But they figured out energy somewhere down the line. You know what I'm saying? Where, you know, because Eric Sermon ultimately became, in my opinion, an energy rapper.
Yeah. He became one of my favorite rappers after where he came from. You know what I'm saying? One of my most improved rappers of all time. That's why I call Eric Sermon. You know what I'm saying? Let me give it that to him.
I love that. I love that when a rapper, you come out, don't just stay at where you at. That's one thing I loved about KRS-One. KRS-One elevated. Like, time after time, you know what I'm saying? When the times evolved and all of a sudden, you know, now this music was outdated, KRS-One was still basically keeping up with the youngsters, you know what I'm saying, after a fashion. He never went to like the flippity flip stuff. Well, he kind of attempted to do that, but but he always leaned into the boom bap and he was unapologetic about it. And, you know, he did that. So, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, anyway, I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up right here, bro. Let me see. Get my peoples here. All right. So we'd like to thank y'all for joining us for another Spin That Back this weekend. And check us out possibly next Saturday. If we're not on next Saturday, just go ahead 10:30. Look at what we got going on. And after that, just go back into the archives, look at one of those Spin That Backs that you ain't looked at. So we finna be up out of here. And we hope that y'all join us again next time. And we out.